Have you ever come upon something you weren't supposed to see? Something that changed everything? What would you do if in an instant you discovered that the trust you had created over the years had been broken by betrayal? I recently learned that my wife had been hiding a secret life via texts that I was not meant to see. The shock, the hurt, and the uncertainty about what to do next hit me at once. Instead of exploding or fleeing immediately, I chose a path that would most likely surprise others. While going through the complex process of ending our marriage, I chose a somewhat unique method. I am 37, and my wife is 35. We have been married for 8 years and together for 10. She's my best friend and the love of my life. We do not have children. We wanted them, but it was not in the cards for us. During my lunch break, I decided to try a new region and visit a different location. As I wandered down the sidewalk, I noticed my wife emerge from a coffee shop across the street with a man I recognized from her workplace. They were happy and conversing when he slid his arm around her waist, bringing her closer. He leaned in for a kiss and she reciprocated. I froze, unable to comprehend what I was witnessing. Everything around me became a blur at that moment. I stood there, glued to the spot, feeling a slew of feelings inside. Confusion was the initial wave, followed by disbelief. This cannot be happening to us. I wanted to shout, jump across the street, and demand an explanation. Still, my feet felt heavy, as if the gravity of the situation had tied me to the ground. As they turned to walk away, apparently engrossed in their own world, I realized they had not noticed me. A startling combination of hurt and betrayal struck me, and I couldn't get my head around what I saw. I adore this woman more than life itself. I gave her my everything and loved her unconditionally. I'm crushed and gutted. I can't remember the rest of the day because it was all a haze. I couldn't bring myself home and confront her, so I told her I had to stay at a friend's house tonight because he was struggling. She purchased it. I'm sleeping in my car tonight. My world is collapsing, and I don't know what to do. Any advice? Last night was one of the most challenging nights of my life. I spent it in the car, requiring room to comprehend things. A hotel was not an option for the reasons I've stated before. Knowing my wife's schedule and that she goes to work before me, I returned home in the morning after she had already left to shower and change before leaving for work. Mentally, I feel severely hurt and misled. I couldn't sleep all night thinking about the life we'd made together and how it now seemed ruined. I've been trying to recall any red signs I may have overlooked. I'm at a loss because we've always been good at discussing everything. However, she has recently become busier at work, which has resulted in less communication between us. Still, I did not consider this to be a serious concern. A few months ago, she commented that she missed the thrill of our relationship. We addressed it and agreed that this is common in long-term partnerships, promising to take steps to rekindle the spark, which we did. Aside from specific hectic periods, I believe I am a lovely husband. Therefore, I'm left wondering if she found thrill elsewhere. That is the only reason I can come up with, which makes me very angry. I'm currently 80% upset and 20% angry, but I know the fury will increase in the following days and weeks. As for the guy, I know his name, and he collaborates with my wife on a new venture. I assume he'll also be on the upcoming work trip, though she hasn't explicitly stated so. I am still determining whether he is married or in a relationship. Here's what I want to do next. I've already consulted with many divorce lawyers. While I reside in a fault-based jurisdiction, proving adultery in court can be a lengthy and costly procedure, and we must be separated before filing for divorce. Tonight, I intend to go home and pretend to know nothing, which will be difficult, to learn more about the nature of her relationship with this guy. When I confront her, I will divulge one of my discoveries and see whether she admits to the rest. I'd also like to learn more about her colleague. She must know if he has a partner. The difficulty is that I'm not sure how to acquire more information. Some have proposed hiring a private detective, although this seems extreme. If anyone has any experience or suggestions for other ways to gather more information, I'd appreciate it. In addition, I'm not sure how I'll feel after I know everything. I've always claimed I won't forgive adultery, yet I still adore my wife. Maybe once I know all of the information, I will view things differently and be prepared to proceed with separation and divorce. I've opened a new bank account, applied for a new credit card, and provided HR with my new account information. I've also confirmed that my paycheck is paid into the new account. Over my dead body, I will not allow her to spend any more of my money on him if that is what she is doing. I'm using work as an excuse to avoid physical connection with her. Honesty, pouring myself into work and focusing on the next steps keeps me sane. Therapy will come later. For the time being, typing it out is more accessible than talking about it. Speaking about it would make it too real, and I'm not prepared for that yet. I also don't want friends or family to know right now. Conversations with lawyers seemed different because they were realistic. I'll contact my doctor to seek STI tests. Another factor is that my wife and I do not work in traditional office settings. We frequently meet clients in numerous locations, which requires a lot of commuting and grabbing coffee or lunch on the move. We worked in a vast metropolitan region and had just crossed paths during the day. It just so happened that I was a little further out during my journey yesterday and opted to eat lunch in that neighborhood. My wife and I know each other's Reddit usernames. Therefore, I didn't share this with her on my regular account where she could see it. This is a sub she rarely visits, so it's unlikely she'll stumble onto it, but if she does, so be it. It is what it is. I caught my wife with another man and I am completely crushed. I found out everything, and it's worse than I could have anticipated. Last night I examined her phone while she was showering. She had left it in her bedroom and it was not passcode secured. Maybe she assumed I wouldn't check, or perhaps she became too comfortable lying to my face. Regardless, she made a mistake. I searched her phone and discovered a second messaging app she used to speak with him, which is when everything fell apart. Their whole relationship was right there. There were thousands of texts and photographs, some of which lasted until late at night when I was sleeping beside her. This was more than a flirtation. It had been happening for months. They've met regularly in shops, motels, and client lunches. She has been calling him pet names. There was talk of squandered opportunities and a desire for more time together. The worst part is that she's telling him exactly what she used to say to me. "You make me feel alive," was precisely what she said when we first started dating. It was her thing and she recycled it for him. I felt physically ill after years of being together and building a life. That's how she sees it, as if everything we've built is for nothing. I also discovered that her work trip next week is not solely for business purposes. They planned everything: dinners, hotel rooms, and additional alone time. She's treating this like a romantic getaway with him, and I'm sitting here like an idiot. I believed I'd reached my breaking point. Nothing could hurt more than the betrayal I had discovered. But then, I found something that took the wind out of me, like a blow in the gut. I reserved a cabin for us for the weekend 2 months ago. It was an opportunity for us to reconnect as just the two of us. A day before the trip, she stated that her company required her to drive to another city for the weekend to meet with clients, that it was necessary and she couldn't avoid it. She was pretty sorry, mainly because it was 24 hours out and non-refundable. She even vowed to make it up to me. I recall telling her that was okay and that I understood. I even felt awful about missing out on what I hoped would be an excellent time for us. I didn't take the trip that weekend because I didn't want to go without her, and as unpleasant as it was, I accepted that the reservation had been canceled. I discovered she had emailed him the booking confirmation and nearly misplaced it. Then I saw the photos. Wandering by the lake, sitting by the fireside, wine glasses in hand. The weekend that was supposed to be about us became a little dream retreat. I can't even describe how that felt. She canceled our trip to accompany him. I was devastated when I understood the full scope of her betrayal. I almost hurled her phone across the room, but I refrained because it contained all the evidence. When she eventually got out of the shower, I couldn't keep pretending, and she could sense something was wrong. So I confronted her. I inquired if she had anything she needed to tell me. She said no, but I could see panic setting in. I pressed harder, telling her that I knew everything: the emails, lunches, hotel stays, and her affair. She began crying and apologizing. I asked her why she did it. She admitted that it was a mistake, that she became engrossed in the excitement and lost the thrill of experiencing something new. I inquired if she loved him. She said no because she loved me and wanted to be with me. I asked if she'd slept with him, and she responded yes. I told her how much she had ruined me and damaged everything we had built. I asked her if she had ever considered what this would mean to me, to us, but she just sat there crying and apologizing over and over. I told her I was done, that there was no going back. She sought forgiveness. I advised her to go out and be with him since she wanted him so much. She broke down, insisting that she didn't want him, wanted me, and would go to any length to make things right. It was midnight, so I told her to sleep in the guest bedroom. She asked for her phone back, but I refused, stating I was keeping it for now. When she attempted to fight, I informed her that if she snatched the phone from me, I would leave. She did not want it, so I kept it. When I was alone, I forwarded the whole thread of their messages to myself. I reviewed them in greater depth. That's when I discovered that the person was also married. However, there is no mention of children. This morning, we scarcely recognized one another. There were no words exchanged. I returned her phone, but I made it evident that if she left on her work trip, she would return to an empty house. She vowed she wouldn't go. She apologized again, but I was not prepared to hear it. After she departed for work, I burst into tears for the first time since the beginning. I cried. I'm starting to realize that my marriage is a charade. I'll go to the guy's place tomorrow. I have recently identified his address in her Google Maps. I've printed the message thread between them and the images and will give them to his wife, who, as far as I know, is oblivious to what's happening. I will also confront the man who has literally destroyed my life. I'm done playing. First thing this morning, I headed over to his house. She was present, but he wasn't. This worked out better because it allowed me to talk to her without him denying it. When I arrived, he was not home, but she was. When I told her, she initially didn't believe me. She kept stating I had the wrong guy, but I showed her all the texts and images. You could see the tragedy hit her like many bricks. She was unaware. I apologized and told her that I wished I didn't have to be the one to inform her, but I believed she had the right to know. She thanked me, and I offered her my phone number so she could talk or if she needed something. They've only been married for a year and have no children. When I arrived home, my wife was upset with me. The woman had contacted her husband, who called mine to tell her what I had done. My wife was furious, not because of the mess she had created, but because I had revealed her affair. I couldn't believe it. She was more concerned with her affair partner's reaction than what she had done to me. And then things got worse. This person, the man who wrecked both of our marriages, dared to come to my house and bang on the door like a lunatic. I opened it, attempting to remain calm, but I was angry. He began ranting, blaming me for destroying his marriage. The absolute boldness. I advised him to leave my property and that he should look at himself and my wife rather than me if he wanted to blame someone. He yelled obscenities at me. I did not want to become physical with him. I turned to my wife and told her, "You brought this filth into our lives." "Get him off my front porch," I said as I began to walk back inside. She attempted to persuade him to go, but things took a turn. He grabbed her arm and shoved her, causing her to fall. Something inside of me cracked right then. I'm not a violent man, but seeing him put his hands on her despite everything drove me crazy. I restrained him and told him that if he ever came near my house or touched my wife again, I would call the cops. He panicked and fled. Before returning inside, I turned to my wife and questioned, "Is this the man you chose over me? I will never forgive you for the situation you have put me in." She just stood there staring at me in surprise. I saw it on her face for the first time since the nightmare began, as if it had finally hit her. The devastation, the treachery, the catastrophe she had created. She slumped on the ground and sobbed. I still don't understand how she shattered our life for that person. I have begged her to leave the house, but she refuses. I can't stomach being in her presence, so I'm considering staying with a close friend for a time. I'm going to meet him for a drink tonight to tell him. I had drinks with my best friend last night. My wife knew where I was going and was worried about what people in our neighborhood would think if they found out what she did. Still, she also stated she was glad I had someone to talk to because she knew I was hurting. Finally, speaking to someone about everything eased a weight off my shoulders. Still, it also felt like the entire reality of my position hit me again. It's really devastating. When I arrived home, it was late, but she was still awake, watching our wedding film, and I could tell she had cried. Seeing that enraged me, I asked her why she was even bothering to watch it, accusing her of attempting to influence me. She stated that it was not her purpose, that she had felt as if she were living in someone else's body for months, and that she was only now recognizing how terribly she had messed up. She explained that she viewed the movie because she wanted to see us when we were happy. I told her it was a shame she didn't appreciate how good we had it and how glad I was with her. I assumed she felt the same way. She burst into tears, stating she had been silly not to realize what was standing in front of her. I'm typically strong-willed and don't give up easily, but this scenario has broken me. I'm not proud of what happened next. She held and kissed me and I allowed her, but just before it got too far, I stopped myself. I stepped back and told her this wasn't going to work, that she couldn't expect I could just forgive everything she did. She said she understood but wanted to talk, so we sat and talked for several hours. I asked her why she did it, and she explained that she had been thinking about it all day. She didn't know why, but she said she missed the energy in our relationship. I told her I already knew. We'd discussed it before and decided to make a more extensive effort, more date evenings, less work. But she complained it wasn't enough. I sometimes canceled date evenings for work, making her feel like an afterthought. I accepted responsibility for my actions, but reminded her that none warranted what she did. She agreed, but wanted to know what motivated her to make those decisions. I then informed her how I found out. She looked astonished, as if I had only found the affair by looking through her phone. I told her that I spotted her kissing him outside the coffee shop. She was floored. I inquired as to how it started. She claimed it had been going on for months. They collaborated closely with a group of people, and he was always pleasant, but nothing wrong at first. When I canceled plans, she occasionally joined her colleagues at the pub after work. He picked up on it and asked her why I canceled, which is where it all began. One night, after a few beers, they lingered behind when the rest went, and he promised her that if he married her, he would never cancel a date. They kissed, and she quickly regretted it and took an Uber home despite his offer to drop her off. After that, things became more subtle but persisted. They worked late hours together on a project and things intensified. I just sat and listened. I told her I was upset when I discovered she had taken him on the trip I had planned for us. She claimed she was upset with me after a disagreement and went on vacation with him out of spite. She realizes how messed up it was and wishes she could undo it all. I know I made mistakes too. We both have hard careers, and I took some things for granted, but I always tried to make amends to her. She accepted this but continued to feel unimportant. I questioned if she had fallen in love with him. She swore she didn't, that she simply enjoyed the attention he gave her. She wanted to know where my mind was. I told her I was heartbroken and never believed we'd be here. We'd always communicated, but it turns out we needed to be talking about the correct topics. I reminded her that cheating was a deal breaker for me and she was aware of it. She said she understood if I wanted to divorce, but she hoped I would allow her to make things right. I'm unsure if I'm doing foolishly, but I told her I had yet to decide. I made it plain that if we were to try reconciliation, there would be conditions. I told her she needed to cut off all communication with him, and she agreed. I wanted her to write down every detail of the relationship, every kiss, every trip, every intimate moment, and told her that if she left anything out, I would leave immediately. She agreed. I advised her to inform her friends and family what she did. There was some hesitancy, but she eventually accepted, and she will begin individual counseling to determine why she did this. She agreed. In the meantime, I've set a meeting with a divorce lawyer for next week to discuss my choices, since I don't want to be caught off guard again. I don't intend to tell her this. Earlier today, the guy's affair partner's wife contacted me. She asked if I was willing to meet with her later to speak. I agreed. My wife is aware of this but is unhappy about it. For the record, my wife was aware of his marital status from the beginning. Apparently, he informed her that his wife had changed after they married, was mistreating him, refused to have sex with him, and that he intended to divorce her. I'm beginning to suspect that this guy has been lying all along to sleep with my wife. I'm emotionally and physically weary. I met with the other betrayed spouse, the affair partner's wife, in a park. It seemed weird at first, but she was glad I told her about the affair. She stated that she had gone through her husband's phone, computer, and emails and discovered something, a sex tape of him and my wife in my bedroom on our bed. I could barely watch for a few seconds before stopping. It was terrible. The other deceived spouse apologized, but I thanked her for sharing it. My wife's character is fundamentally flawed, and the disrespect she has shown me throughout our marriage is intolerable. I understood this on some level, but was not ready to confess it. This pushed me over the edge. I spoke with the other betrayed spouse for a little longer, but I won't go into detail since I respect her. To put it simply, her husband is a liar who spreads lies about his wife to my wife. The other deceived spouse intends to split and divorce him, and I promised her I'd do the same with my wife. We wished each other luck and parted ways. When I pulled into my driveway, a car came up behind me. It was my affair partner. The moron was waiting for me. Before exiting the automobile, I called the police and reported the trespassing. He stepped out and began ranting, asking why I was meeting his wife and what I was playing at. I ignored him and started walking into my house. He followed me inside while still ranting. I do not condone violence, but in this circumstance, it was necessary. I kicked him out of my house with a bleeding nose and possibly bruised ribs, but by the time the cops arrived, he had vanished. I made a report and provided his address. I want to follow up with my lawyer regarding a restraining order next week. I messaged the other deceased spouse to let her know what transpired. She was startled that he even knew we had met. She said she hadn't notified him about our meeting and had kicked him out of the house yesterday. I assumed my wife must have told him. Conveniently, my wife was not present for the entire garbage show. When she got home, I told her she could check in on her boyfriend because he didn't look good the last time I saw him. I also informed her that the next time I would break his legs. She seemed stunned and perplexed. I told her I knew she was the one who informed him about my meeting with the other betrayed spouse. She initially denied it, but later revealed she simply didn't want the other betrayed husband to fill my head with lies, and thought the affair partner would persuade her not to meet with me. That's when I finally recognized her as the deceptive woman she was. I advised her to pack her belongings and move to the basement. She had till tomorrow morning. We co-own the house, so I can't push her out, but I'd rather not see her. I advised her to use the basement door from now on and to contact me only via text or email regarding our divorce processes. I told her to take the mattress with her since I would buy a new one for myself. She appeared bewildered. I answered, "Yeah, I know about the sex video." Her expression was terrific. "I'm now staying at a friend's apartment tonight. I'll check back in the morning to ensure she's moved into the basement. This marriage is over. This will probably be my final post. There will be no reconciliation. I have made my decision. I'll be moving forward with the divorce and am ready to focus on my own healing." That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel to receive future updates. Please share your opinions in the comments. I'd love to learn how you'd approach this circumstance. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.